Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, continuing to take a look at the next week's slate and heading down to the ACC Championship, the Louisville Cardinals, the Florida State Seminoles, and looking at this Florida State team. You're down your star quarterback in Jordan Travis. You head on the road and you get it done against the Florida Gators. Massive game, rivalry game, and I think that speaks to where this Florida State team is at, and going back to how we talked about this team in August, that are they the most talented team in college football? I think there's a strong argument that they're not. But something felt special about what Mike Norvell and this veteran leadership has built within this program. And whatever that special thing is that we talked about, I think you saw it on the road against the Florida Gators, back against the wall, rallied back. And then you take a look at the Louisville Cardinals. They're coming off a loss against Kentucky that, quite frankly, shouldn't have happened. You outgained Kentucky by 100 yards, 23 first downs to their 16, special teams and turnovers. Cost the Cardinals this game. Still a very good team. Still a matchup that I'm extremely excited for. The Florida State Seminoles, a chance to punch their ticket to the college football playoffs. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys. These game previews have been a blast for us to do, and talking ball with you guys in the comment section has been a blast. But the support you guys have shown, it means a lot. If you do enjoy the content, you want to support the fellas, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, sincerely, thank you to you guys for all the support. Dill, going to give you the T-box here. Cardinals, Seminoles, how we feeling?
Yeah, I think we got a win and you're in situation for Florida State. And I don't care what anyone says, are they one of the best four? If you go undefeated and win the ACC, you're in the college football playoff. I don't care what anyone says. So obviously huge stakes here, and a good chance for Louisville to frankly win start off really, really hot with Jeff Brown rather than ending on kind of a sour note in a game. I think most people who watch that would probably say Louisville should have won.
Yeah, 100%. And this Cardinals team, like what Jeff Brown has done, extremely impressive. Should have 11 wins heading into this one. But again, like you said, a chance to kind of get that monkey off your back with a chance to win the conference, win the ACC. Massive matchup. Want to start with this Florida State offense without Jordan Travis going up against a Cardinals defense that has been just dominant all year. And was it their best game against Kentucky? No, but they were put in some bad spots. He obviously had a special teams touchdown. I want to start with Florida State, and kind of what we talked about heading into the Florida Gators matchup is, yes, you are down Jordan Travis, one of the best quarterbacks in college football. You have a little bit more of an inexperienced quarterback in Tate. But the thing is, you have so much talent around Tate Rodemaker. You take a look at Trey Benson, had himself a day. Johnny Wilson had himself a day. Keon Coleman, when I'm looking at this Florida State team and watching that game back, I'm not going to argue Mike Norvell and offensive scheme. Those guys are a lot smarter than me, but let's get some touches and more touches to Keon Coleman, because whenever that football is in his hands, you saw in the punt return, good things happen. Yes, can you rely on Tate as much as Jordan Travis? Probably not, so you got to use the talent around him, and Keon Coleman, probably the best player on the field this Saturday.
Yeah, and the nice thing about Keon Coleman is you don't necessarily need to get him the ball deep down the field. That's where he plays his game for sure. But you see with punt return skills and other things, if you get this guy the ball with a little bit of space, he's very, very dynamic. He's probably the most dangerous player they have any point on the field. So I'm kind of with you. I think given this situation, he needs to be force-fed the football, and that probably does give them the best chance to be successful with Rodemaker.
And because when you look at it, you can get, I think the conception of Keon Coleman, and get it. If you're just on Twitter, you see the crazy catches downfield and the tremendous ball skills. And yes, that is probably the best element of his game, but they got him returning punts for a reason. This guy with the ball in his hands is, one, a force to bring down, and just a smooth mover, end around, screens, whatever you can do to get Keon Coleman some touches. That's kind of what I'm looking for Florida State. Trey Benson had a phenomenal game, and you love to see the guys around him step up, right? Johnny Wilson, Trey Benson, Jaheim Bell, everyone kind of doing their part. Now, the run game, it's going to be difficult because you look at this Cardinals defense, only 3.3 yards per carry, 2 opposing running backs, a top 20 rushing defense in the country. If you can get the run game going, that's obviously going to help in a game of this magnitude, but it's going to be tough sledding against the Louisville Cardinals defense that does not get enough credit nationally for how good they've been.
And frankly, I really don't see them just lining up and running downhill on this team.
Yep.
I think they're going to need to find creative ways to get Benson the football. You kind of watch what Kentucky did. They were able to use screens and use that aggressiveness of how Louisville plays to get Ray Davis some space. And once you get in space with Louisville, you have a shot because, again, they all kind of fly into the quarter. They're very aggressive. They fly around. And when you have a guy like Trey Benson, who's as smooth a mover, can make guys miss in the open field, you have a shot to create enough big plays, I think, to be successful. But I don't think they should just try to essentially give Benson his touches by straight up runs.
And you know they like to go counter and kind of those run schemes. And you're not totally asking Florida State to lose their identity in terms of how they want to run the football, but you are asking probably because you kind of got extenuating circumstances, a backup quarterback going up against the Louisville defense that's this good. You're going to have to get creative. You're going to have to scheme some of your guys open. And throwing the football on Louisville, the one thing I'm looking at, the Cardinals secondary is very good. They're only giving up a 56% completion percentage to opposing quarterbacks. But the number that I have circled in my note, 7.5 yards per pass, that is 78th in the country. They give up some explosive plays. And you even go back to the Kentucky game, Devin Leary averaged 17 yards per completion. So this is a Cardinals defense that you said it best. They're aggressive stopping the run. They're aggressive pinching down on wide receivers. Can you get Keon Coleman on a double move? Can you get someone in space matched up one-on-one, some single coverage stuff? Because you probably have the wide receivers and Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, and Jaheim Bell to make some plays. You know this Cardinals team is going to rotate some safeties in the box. Can you take advantage down the field is going to be a massive storyline here.
And frankly, for me, I thought Rodemaker sort of settled into that football game.
Yeah.
I know the first couple, probably quarter and a half was obviously pretty rough, but he did settle in and you look like you see the arm talent. He's not one of those backup quarterbacks who is like a complete liability. And there's some teams that don't have that backup who you can come in and do anything with. It's like, well, let's just try to gimmick our way down the field. I think they still should be able to run a semblance of what their offense is. And again, he's not Jordan Travis. I'm not going to try to make that argument. But I did feel like by the end of that game, he'd settled in. I mean, Johnny Wilson, like that drop, can't have it. When you have a backup quarterback, you got to make those catches in those big spots. But I thought he played good enough for them to win towards the end of the game. And I think given the second week they have with him now being the guy, I think you should see more comfortability. And again, just be able to run the system that they run.
I totally agree. And this is a really strong talking point. The second game, like you're kind of learning on the fly. And I don't really count the North Alabama game because kind of, not to disrespect North Alabama, but everything's going to work against them. But you get to a team like Florida, the first couple of drives, you're trying to figure out what Tate's comfortable with and what he does well and what he likes. And now that you have that idea, you saw the second half, the offense looked much, much more comfortable. And you're hoping that you can build on that and say, okay, you like these concepts, you like these looks. We're going to try to give you more of these concepts and looks. And you kind of expect the offense to look a little bit more comfortable week 2 with Tate at the starting quarterback. And last thing to note, this Cardinals pass rush, it's elite. If there's one thing that we've had questions about up front for Florida State, it is on that offensive line. Can you protect Tate is going to be a massive storyline because guys like Ashton Gelati, Stephen Heron, like they can get after the quarterback. Flipping sides, and this is one of the talking points that does not get enough attention, is a lot of when you talk about Florida State, talking Jordan Travis, talking Keon Coleman, talking Trey Benson, not to take away anything from what those guys are doing, they're absolute studs. This Florida State defense has been elite. I mean, 17 points per game allowed. That is 10th in the country. They're giving up a 47% completion percentage to opposing quarterbacks. That's number 1 in the country. This Florida State defense is full of absolute hammers, and this Louisville offense is kind of, I would say, hit or miss is probably the best. You've seen them kind of lay some duds. You've seen them really get hot. This is a really interesting matchup as well here.
And honestly, for me, the big thing I'm looking for is Florida State to have a bit of a bounce back from their front seven, at least from that first half, because you saw Florida was able to run the ball and get those creases, and you need to be able to play in your gaps. I thought some of the defensive tackles at times looked like they tried to like shoot into one gap, and then you open up those big holes. And Garendo and
Jawar Jordan
are far too dangerous to do that. So that to me, I thought they started to get going towards the back half of that game against Florida. They're going to need to play 4 quarters of really solid football from that defensive line because you can't give those creases up to Louisville. They're killing teams with that.
But no, not necessarily counter, but another observation is they were kind of shooting a little bit. They were creating some negative plays. Like you take a look, Jared Verse absolutely eating the lunch of all the Florida Gators offensive line. I mean, that was utter domination. You take a look at the Florida State defensive line in general, 6 sacks, 11 tackles for loss against the Florida Gators. That was a complete mismatch. And you look at the Cardinals, this was an offensive line that really struggled in pass protection against Kentucky. This is probably going to be the best pass rush unit that Louisville has seen all year. Can guys like Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Patrick Payton go and get after Jack Plummer, stopping the run, forcing those third and long situations? That's what you're trying to get into for Florida State, because that's when this defense is so dangerous.
If they can stop the run, it's going to be a long day for Louisville. Yeah. I just don't see how they can block this front four. I mean, the way Peyton and Verse are playing, especially they got like 4 guys they can roll through in that defensive tackle spot, all very, very good. So if they can stop the run effectively, they should be in good shape. I do get Jack Plummer's coming on for sure, and he's been playing better in these couple games. But when you can turn the heat up on him and get after him, he makes mistakes. He's not a great athlete and can't really escape pressure. That's how I think you can really start to tee off on this Louisville offense. But again, it all does predicate on stopping the run, because if they can run the ball, this is as dangerous as they come with Jack Plummer using the play action, and he's been effective at that.
Yeah, 100%. This is a Cardinals offense that wants to run the football. Their passing game a little predicated on getting that run game going. If you take away the run game and you force Plummer to be kind of that drop back quarterback in those third and long situations, that's where you're making your money. And that's probably the story of this matchup. Again, that secondary, absolute nails, going up against the Louisville Cardinals wide receiver group that I think can make it happen. Still getting to the pick here, Florida State, the line's been bet down, open up around 5.5, down to 3.5 points. Florida State favored right now. How are we feeling about it?
I love the Noles. I think people are, again, it matters when you lose your starting quarterback. When you're a really, really good college football team, which I think Louisville or Florida State should say is, I think you can weather that. And again, I do think Louisville's probably a couple of years away from being what Florida State is now, where they're very, very deep across the board and have like that top end talent. I just think Louisville or Florida State right now is a more complete and deep team.
I'm with you on Florida State. Like, this is a team, and I'll tell you what, this Louisville team, ton of respect for. I think they're legitimately they're the second best team in the ACC. I think they're a phenomenal football team. But you look at Florida State, and it kind of goes beyond the X's and O's and a little bit of a gut check vibes kind of feel to this. Mike Norvell and this Florida State program, they're built for this. Like, you had that second half, your back's against the wall against a rival in the Florida Gators, and you find a way to win a football game. I just get that sense that Florida State, when the stakes are the highest and the college football playoffs on the line and the ACC title is on the line, who do you have more confidence in? It's this Mike Norvell Florida State team. Give me Florida State to cover the points. This is going to be a phenomenal game. I have a ton of respect for Louisville, especially what they do on the defensive side of the ball. But I think Mike Norvell and this Florida State team, it feels special. I ain't going to bet against them in the ACC Championship game. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate all the support you guys have shown the boys, and we'll talk to y'all later.